Hello everyone, I'm Joanner, a Brazilian software engineer living and working in Europe. And today I'm going to show you two different ways to think about a project. I see there are a lot of content for beginners, and that's nice actually. But I really believe that there are a lot of people getting stuck when try to leave the beginner layer and start being an intermediate developer. Well, since you have an intermediate level, you are able to read documentations, understand someone else's code, and the most important thing, start decide among the options we got and what's the best alternative for each scenario. Of course, we should make a million of mistakes first, but it's really important to have a goal and to know where we want to get as a result. And besides, I'm going to show you only two different scenarios in this video. There are unlimited ways to approach anything, and it's up to you to decide which one is the best choice. So now we'll take a look in two different scenarios, and that's I've created and try to have two different approaches. And so I'm going to split the projects on the screen, and we are together in this theme, start comparing them. So let's go.
So usually I don't make the repositories public, so I just created this one to exemplify the technologies and show some basic stuff. Okay. Um, all the repositories here mentioned in this video, I'm going to let public, and you guys have the full instructions to run it. You just need to read the README, and all the instructions are over there. Nice. So for the first project, I split the screen in two, so we can see the first project here on the left, which I have used the FastFi, Next, and SQL3. Okay, and on the right, the other side or right, we have the FastFi project using the same thing but with Prisma and PostgreSQL. Nice. Between the database, it won't make any difference since it's using either Next or Prisma. But on the second one, the Prisma abstracts deeper, and the interaction with the database is kind of softer. So I really prefer Prisma, and I guess that everybody does the same. It's interesting to keep the next on the other project just to see different approachment for using the different technologies. That's why I created two different projects, like as portfolio, and I guess that it will be good actually. Okay. As I said, if you want to run one of them or both of them, you just need to read the instructions. Just go ahead. It's not a problem. Okay. But the point of this video is not the technologies that I've used, but what I want to show to you guys is the division of the classes and the responsibility for the project. So even both of them being small projects, we can see different ways to approach the same thing. Let's focus on the left. I will just, yeah, I guess that's, on the left, we are able to see basically inroads. Let's see, inroads transaction, everything that's related to this app. It's a REST API. Okay, it's a really basic. And on the road transactions, we have the actions here, the verbs. Basically, if you want to get a specific transaction, a summary of transactions, or to even create the transactions. And you can see here, we use the next, sorry, to insert, to relate to database, dependent of the database, because here is not specified, but we know it's using S.O.L.I.D 3. Okay, but you can see that everything is in this file. So that's the easiest way, because the main goal of this project is being small. But if we start make it bigger, it's impossible to handle that in one single file. And usually that's the difference between a beginner and a developer that can understand that we can separate the files, the responsibilities, and not only to have more files. Oh, it's because it's bad or beautiful. No, it's because it's useful to have more advantages, and we can see that on the other project. That's the same, almost the same idea. Okay, it's a single project. We also have the the entrance for our application. It's a REST API, But in this case, we divided in three different structures, I would say like that. So focusing, I can start explaining the advantages of this decoupling. Okay, so we have, that is the HTTP, the routes entrance, the user cases over here, and the repositories. All of them are separated from the each folder. And the HTTP, we have the controllers, okay? And let's take this one, for example, register, okay? So basically, we validate the data using S.O.L.I.D, but the other projects we also use S.O.L.I.D. It's not a big deal here, okay? And depending on what happens, the code will decide if it will just return here like a create a good answer, good response code, or we will redirect some, depending of the error that we can handle here, we will return a bad response, okay? So the responsibility of the HTTP layer is only in this file. It's really important to see that there is no business rule here. Just catch if there is some problem, some error, and just return to the request. Okay, so that's a good point. The second thing, that's because the HTTP layer usually will call the user case. In fact, we have the same register here, but now we don't validate the inputs because it was validated before in the HTTP layer, but we start to have the mentioning of the user's repository. And in this case, the user's repository is an interface, so it's not explained. We have more repositories, just this one, okay? And we basically execute some function. So the user case for this is the register user case. So we basically put the input, we pass the input. Thus, we can do some business rules here. This is the place to make the business rules. And if all the things are okay, we try to create like this, we try to register on the repository. It means we try to persist the data on the repository. Then, if it's okay, we return the object that was created to the HTTP layer. Okay, but the point now, we can see that the user's repository is mentioned here. And if we see here in the repositories, we have this file that the user's repository, but look at, it's just an interface justifying what the actions, the methods that we can have. And one of the repositories that we have here will follow the interface. So the repository that we are using here is the Prisma, and you basically see that the methods are implemented and they persist in Prisma on the Postgres using the Prisma, and it's defined on the Prisma file, right? But if you check, if you notice, there is a in-memory here. And it's a really interesting repository because you can have many repositories here. And since the project getting bigger, usually you don't have only one. Imagine you calling like a Prisma repository, or memory repository, other repositories. And here you have like decouple the repositories here. Nice. So in this case, the in-memory, I usually use that with a really basic JavaScript code like we can see here, okay, that I created, basically I created here a empty list, and this list I will simulate as the database. So I can create here, over here, you just push the data in a list, and then, for example, if I find the email, I can find the list. But you will ask to me, Joanna, but why don't you, why do you instead of just using the Prisma? Because if we use only the Prisma, we will make the tests on the Prisma too. So we will persist tests on Prisma. And for unit tests, usually the projects have, it's like a parent. So we need to have as many as possible. And usually unit tests can be slow if we start accessing the database. So here I can have a clean all the time that I need. And it doesn't spend even a second to process. If you see here, we can see that I have some files for tests. And in this case, all the time I will use the in-memory repository here. Basically, I will have the new repository all the for each test that I do. For example, it should be able to register. Okay, basically I will pass here. They will send to that repository, and I don't need to have any interaction to database. Basically, I'm using that list to simulate. It may be complicated after, but we can handle that really easily into the in-memory classes. Okay, so here's the same thing. Oh, but I cannot register twice. So I just create the first time, and then I try to create the same thing using the same email, in this case, John at valet.com, with different data. And even so, I'm expecting to receive an error. It's a specific error that I created, and this error will be thrown by the use case and then handled by the HTTP layer. Sorry. So we have these clear advantages here because since we start changing the structure of the files, we start separating. Uh, each file, each layer has their own responsibility. So we can even create factories. We can handle better we can have our own errors. And actually, my point with this video is not to show that there is a correct or wrong way to develop a song, but I'm starting saying to you that when you are a beginner and you want to migrate, you want to learn more and start being an intermediate developer, you need to start thinking about the infrastructure or the way that you are creating. So there are many ways like S.O.L.I.D and many others that we organize based on the way and like I really guess that's a really good thing. You start having just one file and that's okay. But in a certain moment, you need to improve and to understand the things. And that's the way. I really didn't want to speak a lot on this video because the idea is just show that it exists and you can see the difference between the repositories that I will add on the description of this video. So for today, that's it. That's all, folks.